topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program, which has been brought to you with passion and pride since February of 2015. Thanks for tuning in this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. Most leaders are sitting on untapped human energy, and I help them unlock it. I'm an organizational psychologist, logotherapist, workforce advisor, and the founder of the Gusto Now movement. But the title that I really live by is much simpler than that. I traffic in energy. Not the surface level motivation or another engagement initiative, but the deeper force, what I call gusto, the life force for performance that drives commitment, perseverance, and genuine ownership of a shared mission and the clients we serve. You learn more about us and how we can work together at gusto-now.com or my personal site, elisecortez.com. Getting into today's program, we have with us Mary Baird, who has one goal in mind: to help people simplify their lives. As a senior employee experience strategist, she spent over 18 years experience helping organizations transform how their people experience work. As the founder of the Simplifiers, she partners with clients to help leaders listen better, fix what's broken, and build workplaces where people fall back in love with work. She's the author of her new book, Squash the Sunday Scaries, a modern playbook to rebuild trust, transform culture, and reignite your workforce. We'll be talking about the state of today's workforce, the call for improving employee experience to increase business prosperity, and take a short tour of a few of the flywheel areas she addresses in her book and with her clients to help them do just that. She joins us today from Dallas. Mary, welcome to Working on Purpose.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Isn't it nice to be on the other side of the mic?
I love that. So I'm a podcaster and I get to interview people all day long. So it is nice to be over here.
I know, and I loved being on your podcast. You are a real pro, my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's just first celebrate this thing that you brought into the world. It's so beautiful. And I mean, I'm really impressed, Mary. I really, really am impressed. You, as I said to you in the text, you really clearly know your stuff, and you are got to be a gift to your clients. And I also love coming to celebrate at your book launch as well. So this is exciting.
Thank you so much. If anybody's listening or watching this stream right now and has ever written a book, you know the obscene amount of work that goes into it. But if you're thinking about writing a book, holy smokes, let me just say now, it's an obscene amount of work.
Yes, it really is.
But I think it's also worth it because especially if you know certain things that can help unlock friction or reduce kind of challenges in the workplace, I think it needs to be talked about.
I agree. And I always say to people when they come on the podcast, I love saying this to men especially, I say, that this is what you did by bringing this book into the world is actually harder than bringing a human into the world. I know I've done both. And they always kind of feel a little, elevated by that, I think. Yeah. So one of the other things I want to just also celebrate about you in general, Mary, and also the way you wrote your book, it's playful Mary speak. And I love that. And this is, we are in the game with you. I love it. You've got in there like how Lauren snorts when she gets some of these messages from the COO and such. And it's just fun. So, and the fact that you're even talking about Sunday Scaries. So let's talk about that. I actually was in the gym on Sunday on the bike reading your book, and somebody next to me said, "Interesting, you're reading a book about the Sunday Scaries on Sunday."
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Sunday Scaries, I think that's a terminology that people know about, pretty prevalent in kind of pop culture these days. But if you don't, it's that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach at right around 8:42 p.m. on a Sunday night, especially if you don't love your job. You're realizing, oh my God, I have to go back to that place tomorrow morning. And that insane pile of emails in my inbox is, mocking me from afar. It's that feeling of like dread, existential dread. And it just makes me sad when I think about it, because when I was doing the research for this book and realizing how big of a problem is this? Is it only a couple of people that have the Sunday Scaries, or is it a massive problem? And unfortunately, sorry to admit, it's a massive problem. The Gallup State of the Workplace report of 2025 mentioned that only 27% of managers are engaged at work globally. In the 2026 report, it's down to 22%. So that basically means that nearly 80% of your managers in your company right now, no matter if you work for a small business or a mega global multinational corporation, 80% potentially of your managers are clocking in, clocking out, doing solid C- work, and, dreading coming into their job. And we all know that disengaged managers create disengaged teams. So it's poison in the well for a large chunk of your workforce and population. It's no good.
I know. No bueno, if you'd like to say, yeah. Well, you are certainly someone who can speak to this. Your background is really incredible. I looked again at your LinkedIn profile and was just amazed. 18 years of experience helping organizations to transform how their people experience work. And of course, writing this book, hosting your podcast. Amazing. Can you just kind of just highlight a little bit of that experience that you draw from?
Yeah. Well, so in that 18 years, the very first 11 years, I was on the event side. So I produced large scale employee engagement events for some pretty massive clients. This is when I was based down in Austin, Texas. So I was working with clients like Google and Microsoft, Meta, Intel. We even helped produce the first 2 iterations of TEDx Austin way back when. And so on the event side, when clients bring me in to, say, do an awards program or produce an offsite strategic retreat, it's not just food and beverage and colors of linens. For me, it's the full experience. Like, what are we hoping to create as positive change from this? What are we hoping to create as the experience for the employees at the event? It's not frivolous in any way, shape, or form in my mind. And when I, started in events, I realized there's so much more to employee experience than just recognition and engagement event programs. And so that's really where it sparked my whole interest in employee experience and rebuilding workplace culture, because we spend so much time at work. And so again, it just breaks my heart when I think about the fact that people are drudging into work, collecting a paycheck, not feeling like their work is meaningful or has purpose, or that they're being recognized for the work they're doing. And I just, that's where I realized, man, we could be doing better. And so I sold off the event side of the business, relocated to England for about 6 or 7 years. And that's a whole other story for another time. But I pivoted the business into leadership development and my own public speaking career. And that's where I started to realize that in coaching and consulting on that side of the coin, actually, there's a whole other realm of what's possible to improve the employee experience. That's the true genesis of the EX flywheel.
Which we're going to get into here in just a little bit later. So next, what I would love to do is I want to give a shout out and a call out to our dear beloved Jimmy Taylor, who's the executive director of Dallas HR and who wrote your foreword. I love it that he did that for you. And he talks, and he's got a ton of experience with HR in various organizations. But I appreciate how he talks about the emotional impact and toll work can have on people. And he also says, just kind of what you were saying before, about the single factor that influences the experience of work more than anything else is that frontline people manager. And yet organizations are spending large amounts of money in an overcomplicated way, when really what they need to do is just focus on delivering the employee experience that we're going to talk about here. So I wanted to celebrate that, because I think he does a really beautiful job setting up the rest of the book with that preliminary message.
Yeah, Jimmy, if you've never met Jimmy Taylor of Dallas HR, he is one of the nicest, kindest humans I've met on the planet. And that's saying a lot. I've met a lot of really incredible people. But he is just so passionate about helping people who work in the HR industry in the DFW area. And he's absolutely right. Again, going back to the Gallup poll stats of only 22% of your managers are engaged at work, they are your culture champions. They set the tone in your organization across. So while HR may set the initiatives and create opportunities to improve employee experience, the people who are your foot soldiers who are carrying it out are those managers. And so they're the key to really making sure that they're engaged, they're plugged in, and they're having a positive employee experience, because that ripples out to everyone else.
So in order to bring this problem to fuller life here, I think it makes a lot of sense to talk about what you mentioned in the book, and I talked about it in one of my books as well, is the crack in the social contract. Yes. What broke and why now? So situate that for us. What's going on? What's underneath all of this?
Yeah. So my dad's 83 now, but when I was growing up as a kid, he worked in major corporations, right? Kraft, Xerox, all of these kinds of places where back in the day, he's a boomer, he would have worked someplace 30, 40 years, gotten the gold watch at retirement, gotten the pension and, the corner office and all of that. There was security and stability. If you committed yourself to a corporation and your life to it, you would have a job to go to from one point to a next point to a next point to a next point, right? The reality is that's not the truth for most people who work in corporate life currently. In fact, the latest stat is that how long does a Gen Z person stay in a job? Currently, 1.7 years. And I don't think that's because Gen Z is like job hopping, because that's what it gets thrown out as being, is like, oh, I'm just going to find a better job that pays me more. That may be some of those people, but I actually think it's something way deeper. Because if you watch the stats of layoffs every single week that get announced by major corporations, Intuit just dropped 17% of their workforce, cut them in this last week, right? The reality is, I think a lot of our current workforce is getting cut. Round after round of layoffs. And so there is no stability. There is no job security, or at least not to the same extent as what previous generations have experienced. So we're asking people to be fully committed, all in, whatever it takes, always on. Those are the great corporate vernacular that's out there, and give all to their jobs when there is no sense of security or safety whatsoever. You could just get cut at the next round of layoffs. And so for me, it's not sustainable. That's the bottom line. And if you roll the tape back for the last 6 years, let's say, so I feel like the timeline sort of split in 2019. I don't know if anyone that's listening, if you agree, but 2020, obviously the pandemic happened. Things went into lockdown. People were sent home. There was a hiring spree at the end of 2020, just butts and seats, whoever we can get to work here, signing on bonuses, all the things. But then also a lot of companies didn't hit their revenue targets in 2020 because everything shut, right? Yeah, right. Supply chain shut. All the things happen. So 2021, they were trying to catch up with the revenue that they missed in the year prior, and also the operations expenses that went out the door because of the hiring sprees. There was a lot of money going out the door, not a lot of money coming in for major corps. So then what happens is 2022, 23, 24, 25, my God, 26, there has been round after round of layoffs for major companies. And if you've ever worked at a company where they do 1, 2, maybe 3 rounds of layoffs per year, you're weary because you're sitting there, if you've saved your job as a survivor, going, well, at least I've still got a job, but you now have 2 jobs or maybe 3 jobs because jobs have been put onto your shoulders without an extra salary. Yay.
Right.
But then you're sitting there also going, well, when is it going to be me? That survivor weariness is exhausting. And how could you possibly expect your people to perform, to do whatever it takes, to be always on with that kind of weariness? It's just not sustainable.
Beautifully explained. And I think that really adds, the palpability of just the enormity of the issue.
Yeah, work is broken. It's fundamentally broken. And, I'm sure we'll talk about AI in a bit. I want to kind of put the spoiler alert out now. I'm actually pro AI because I think
As am
AI
I.
can accelerate the work for incredible talent, people who know how to use it. It can accelerate what they produce. It can empower them for
Right.
sure. But I don't love how major corporations are doing these layoffs and saying, well, it's in the sake of AI and automation, right? Because I think you have to keep your great people and you have to empower them with training on how to utilize AI. It's not a one or the other. It's AI plus humans.
Right. And that is exactly why I founded the Gusto Now movement, because that's really all about doubling down on humanity in the age of technology so that humans can be extended by technology, not replaced by it.
Yes,
The whole
100%.
idea behind the movement right there. So I appreciate that you also talk about this. So this is what we're up against, what the workforce really wants. In addition to being able to trust, their employer, you say that they want meaning and purpose, to be valued, to belong.
Yes.
And it seems to me so simple. And you and I have heard you speak, you've heard me speak. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time. But if you could just add a little bit more flavor to why the workforce wants these things.
Yeah, I think that's basic human psychology. We want to feel like our work has meaning, that what we are doing actually is helping the end user, the end customer. It has some sort of purpose to it, right? And I believe that this is true no matter if you are a bottle washer, a retail store employee, somebody who works on an assembly line, or somebody who works in a fancy office in New York City in corporate. You want to believe that the work you're doing has meaning and purpose. It is contributing to the world in a greater way. And I also believe that people want to know that their work matters, that their boss, their manager, their, team lead sees them, recognizes their work, and, at least is encouraging them along the way. And, I'm not saying that they have to be rah-rah cheer all the way and like, oh my God, you're amazing, and pump people up. It's just a simple human need of like, hey, I see you. Thank you so much for what you did with X, Y, and Z. Hey, what can I do to help you so that your day, your week, your month ahead is a little bit easier? It's those tiny, simple moments that make such a huge difference. And then back to human basic needs, we humans need to belong.
Yeah.
We need to feel like we're part of a community. We're part of something greater. And there's nothing more sad than if you walk into an office space and if you were to observe it, just to audit, and you see people eating lunch by themselves, earbuds in, head down on their phones and not talking to anybody else. And if you watch it happening over and over and over again, because, let's be real, sometimes I just need to shut down, put my earbuds in and just like take a breath. But if I'm doing that over and over again, there's something systemically wrong at that organization, because I think people ultimately want to belong. There's an air in the room of vibrancy when you see people talking, having lunch together, chatting, all of that, or there's opportunities for connection at work rather than, people being isolated and solo.
Going through the motions. Yep. All right, well, let's grab our first break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We're on the air with Mary Baird, who is a senior employee experience strategist and the founder of the Simplifiers, helping organizations transform how their people experience work. We've been talking about how work is broken. After the break, we're going to get into her Simplifiers flywheel concept and start talking through how you can do something about that. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at EliseCortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, as I too am dedicated to helping create a world where organizations thrive because their people thrive. They are led by inspirational leaders that help them find and contribute their greatness, and we do business that betters the world. I keep researching and writing my own books. So one of my latest came out. It's called The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. And like Mary, I wrote the book really to help leaders understand today's workforce. What do they want to need to want to stick around and give you their best? And I then provide you with 22 best practices to equip you to provide that through your leadership and your culture. You can find my books on Amazon or my personal site, EliseCortez.com. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Mary Baird. She's the author of Squash the Sunday Scaries, a modern playbook to rebuild trust, transform culture, and reignite your workforce. So one of the many things that I appreciate about your book, one, it's very, there's just so much practicality. And I love how you instructed in the very beginning, hey, dog ear the pages, take notes in here, et cetera. But one of the greatest things, and listen, whoever's listening here, listeners and viewers, this is so important. One of the things that Mary says is she says, better employee experience equals better customer experience equals better business results. This is it. And it's just so important to get that. So I love your whole flywheel concept. So, and I love how it starts with, of course, start with listening with the intent to act.
Yes.
Let's talk through that first important step. Just not super deep because there's so much you could say about that, but let's get acquainted with it.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the paradigm shift, because I think a lot of companies for so long has been spending money, time, headcount, and resources into improving better customer experience and doing that at the, consequence of the employee. That's where that comes back to whatever it takes, always on, travel bans during lunch periods. So they think, well, if I pour into customer experience, then that will create profit, right? And the paradigm is you start at the top of the funnel. Better employee experience. When you actually invest a little bit of time, money, resources to improving how they experience work, guess what? They're going to be more engaged at work. They're going to want to deliver a really great customer experience. They're going to go above and beyond, and that creates the profit and better business results. So I'm so glad that you said that, because that's literally the foundation of the book from, for all things that were built.
I get it. We align. I totally get it.
Yeah, but employee listening is where you have to start first, because again, as a former event planner, we could talk all day long about canapes and brownie bites and what kind of music we're going to play at an event. It's all the fluff, right? Yes, important details. But if you don't start with the base foundation of what is broken at your organization, and how you find that out is by asking your people, whether that's a pulse survey or a focus group or even coffee with the CEO, like you choose a handful of people every week and they connect with that person. And that's the question you ask. What's broken here? Literally, it's one question. And then, when you build that trust and respect over time with people are going to be more honest with you. At first, they're going to be a little afraid to tell you that, the sponge in the kitchen sink has not been changed in 3 years, and it drives me absolutely nuts. Obviously, you don't care about me because you don't even pay for another sponge that's $3, right? Like, it's those micro details that send signals to your people of like, do they actually care about me? Am I important here, or am I just a cog in the wheel, another robot to create profit for shareholders, or not? So you start with employee listening first. Gather your evidence and your data from your people rather than making hypotheses, and start to go off onto the flywheel as to where I'm going to work first to improve the employee experience.
And one really important thing that I want to say about what you also say in your book, and I completely align with because we do similar kinds of work, is after you've listened for the feedback and gotten your themes, you're going to go back and report it back to the employee base within 19 business days.
Yes,
that's so important. Not going to just go into a hole someplace. You're going to tell people this is what we heard you say.
Yes,
and you're also going to say this is what we're going to do about it, and this is what's coming next, kind of thing. and
Yes.
start working at it. So that's
Yeah.
really important that we don't just collect the feedback and they just quietly disappear.
Yes. You said this. We did this. Here's what's next. That's the formula.
Yeah.
And nothing drives me more crazy than when I hear that people go, okay, let's do a survey. And we ask 28 questions of like, what's broken? And then people tell you, and then you did nothing. You didn't even report the results from it.
Right.
You didn't talk about it. And you certainly are not talking about here's what's next. If I'm the employee that's filled out that 28 survey and I've told you exactly what's broken and I've given you ideas on how to fix it and you've done nothing, it's almost worse than not surveying me.
Right.
And you have to allocate those resources before you survey. You have to know that there's going to be things that people are going to say that are broken and already have initiatives planned of what you're going to do to fix it.
Beautiful. So listeners and viewers, just to give you an idea here, I'm just going to quickly read through the flywheel. We're not going to go into all these, but I wanted to give you an idea of the beautiful breadth that Mary has created here. And then we're going to talk through a few that really kind of add to the value of what we already talked about in the show. So the flywheel, she has talent assessments, succession planning, new hire onboarding, digital experience, recognition and engagement, employer branding, workplace experience, leadership development, and employee the listening, which starts first. So that's what's in that flywheel. It's a beautiful concept. It's so smart and it's very sharp. So the first one that I want to talk about, no surprise, is leadership development and for a skills-based workplace. That's, if we could kind of talk about some of the things in that, there's several pieces to that I think are really, really important that you call out a bit differently. So if you could share a bit about that flywheel aspect.
Yeah. And I want to be super clear. When I say the term leadership development, I am talking about all levels, all departments. So I'm not just saying, hey, just for people who are directors plus, our leaders in our organization who get, leadership development. Everyone's a leader. Everyone has the potential to be a leader, even if they are an entry level person at the very, bottom rung of the org chart or have worked there for 20 years. And I also believe that when you show that you are willing to invest in people, that they show up differently. And I think that's really, really important because I think L&D, learning and development, sort of gets a bad rep sometimes of like, oh, here, assign me another compliance training. I'm just going to click the button as fast as I possibly can to get through it because I got work to do today, right? We're not talking about that. We're really talking about when you have people in your organization, you say, hey, what would you like to work on in this year ahead? What skills would you take interest in developing in the year ahead? And so you might have heard of a concept like an IDP, an individual development plan. And a lot of times it gets tasked as like, oh, could you just fill that out? Like, whatever, we just have to submit it. It's like a corporate thing, whatever. But it can be a tool of empowerment if used correctly. And in my belief, I think an IDP is the owner is the individual, not the manager.
Right.
So, but the manager has to know how to use this tool correctly. And so the manager has to know like, hey, I understand what the business priorities are for this quarter, this year, whatever. And here's where we're headed. This is where we are now, and this is where we're headed next. And so I know that my team needs to develop skill A, skill B, and skill C, right? In order for us to hit our targets. And then it's a pattern of the individual coming to the table and going, okay, here are our priorities for the team and for the business for this year. Here's how your role fits into that. Where do you want to develop in this year ahead? As your accountability partner, this is the boss saying this, how can I help remove roadblocks, run alongside you so that you can develop these skills? That's a different conversation than, hey, could you fill out your IDP because it's, due to HR by Friday, whatever, just put whatever in there.
Yeah. The other thing that I also appreciate about your approach to when you talk about just developing skills at all is you talk about, this idea of isolating a couple of capabilities that do roll up into the business outcomes. But so it's more like this idea of, small chunks, but the idea is ongoing. You don't have to go to a year-long, program or even, a few weeks or whatever, but every more frequently you've got those small chunks. And I think that makes a ton of sense in our approach too.
Yeah, I actually just this week had Ryan McRae on the Simplifiers podcast. He's an L&D executive with 20 years of experience, and he was talking about the concept of micro learning. It's quick, bite-sized amounts of learning. And what happens, it's just like riding a bike. You can't learn how to ride a bike in one day, only doing it for 1 hour total, right? You have to try and try and try and try and try and do it with repetition. So I think that's what's important. It's tiny bites that reinforce the learning, so that you can learn and then you can teach others.
Right.
That's how it becomes really sunk in as a new skill for you.
Mm-hmm. So much more we could say about that, but I want to give as much of a tour here as we can. So let's move on to another part of the flywheel, which is recognition and engagement.
Yes. Yeah. And so in that space, again, that comes from my extensive experience producing events. And one of my favorite frameworks that I have known for, now 20 years, is by Julia Rutherford Silvers. And sadly, she's passed on, but she has something called the 6 A's of event design. And I'm just going to rattle them off really quick, because I think this gives you framework for when you're designing an event experience to think about all aspects of it. So the 6 A's are this: anticipation, as in what is it you're sending to your event attendees beforehand to drive excitement. Arrival, so what is it they experience upon arriving at the event, the offsite retreat, the whatever. Atmosphere, so talk to me about 5 senses. What do they taste, touch, feel, and sense, at this event? Appetite, so what are they eating and drinking, and thinking about people's dietary needs. If you're doing an all-day conference, don't load them up on carbs. They'll be asleep by 2:00 in the afternoon. Right? Activities, so what are you doing to get them up and about and moving around and doing something different to engage different parts of their brain? And then the last one is amenities. So what is it that you're giving them at the end of the day, either if it's a swag bag, a USB stick, whatever, that makes the event special and memorable, that maybe sits on their desk and reminds them of the learning moment that they had. Those 6 A's are quite powerful for every single event experience, whether it's an awards program or a President's Club offsite event, or, even like doing a walk and connect for your company. Let me just kind of break this down if you don't mind. It's super simple. It's a free concept. We used to do this at the last company I worked for. About, once every couple of weeks, we would meet up at Tuesday at 10 a.m. Whoever comes is whoever's there. And we walk around the campus for 30, 45 minutes. We give people conversation starter cards and pair people up in 2s and 3s. And that's it. It costs nothing, but it creates such great value, because A, it gets your people up and out of their desk. They get their steps in. There's wellness in that. B, there's connection and belonging. And C, there's conversations that are starting. That's almost a level of employee listening, if you will, but where people can express their wants, needs, and desires and connect with their coworkers. These are powerful things. You can do that with the 6 A's.
Oh my gosh, so much more we could talk about there, but let's grab our last break here, and then I want to comment on a couple things you said as well. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Mary Baird, who is a senior employee experience strategist and the founder of the Simplifiers, helping organizations transform how their people experience work. We've been talking about getting into some of the flywheel factors. After the break, we're going to dive into a few more, and especially I think you're going to enjoy what she's giving us around the idea of the work experience, especially in a hybrid format. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. As you know by now, this program is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you along your journey to realize more of your potential. As I mentioned in my last segment, The Great Realization came out, and I gave to you a very simple 3-page assessment that you can evaluate the extent to which you are meeting those standards. You can find it at my site, gusto-now.com. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Mary Baird. She's the author of Squash the Sunday Scaries, a modern playbook to rebuild trust, transform culture, and reignite your workforce. So back on the recognition and engagement piece, what I wanted to celebrate that I so align with, because of course we do it as well, is I appreciate that you talk about how, when recognition done well, it reinforces your company's values, and it sparks the feeling that, hey, you noticed me, and you make a super clear idea and point of what good looks like around here. And also you're recognizing when people live the company's values, mission, and vision. So that's all the stuff that we do too. So I think it's such a powerful way to be able to ignite that engagement. So I wanted to celebrate that.
Yes, totally. And if your guiding principles or core values, if there's like 10 or 12, you definitely have to simplify down, because if I can't tell you them easily, then no one knows what they are. So I highly recommend that.
Absolutely. So I want to cover at least two more from your flywheel pieces here. The next one is new hire onboarding that feels like belonging. I think you do a stellar job of really creating and laying out what can an experience look like that really starts that feeling of belonging, connection, like I made the right choice from the day one.
Yes.
Speak to a little bit of that.
Holy smokes. I feel like onboarding is so, it's so obvious what I'm about to say, but so many companies get this wrong. And we spend so much time and money and effort, and did I say money, lots of money, to attract talent to our company. And we go through 15 interviews and all the things. And then finally we give them an offer. And then on day one, we stumble at the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this where a person shows up on their first day of work and they don't know where to park. They don't know who they're meeting the first day. They haven't figured out how to get their laptop or computer from whoever's giving it to them. They find their desk and realize it's got somebody else's name on the nameplate, and dusty stuff inside the desk.
Always motivating, yeah.
And then, when it comes to lunchtime, they have no clue who they're going to lunch with. No one's prearranged anything. They're just sort of left on their own. And all of these key signal points: where to work, what am I wearing, who am I meeting, and where am I going to lunch? Those 4 are the most important things. If you can get those figured out for day one, you are ahead of 90% of companies that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of employee experience. You can't make a first impression for multiple times. You only get one chance at it. And these are the things that make it right.
Mm-hmm. And I like how what Jimmy Taylor said in his foreword, that the quality of that connection with the manager in those first 90 days really sets the tone.
Yeah, it for sure does. And I even say that onboarding begins before day one. So there's something that I would call pre-boarding, which happens from the point that a person accepts the job offer all the way up to the first day they log in, if they're a remote employee, or they step inside the office on day one. That pre-boarding phase is so incredibly important to get it right. If you're sending them thousands of emails and taking them to different forms to fill out, and it's just like long and laborious, and you're going, oh my God, what is all of this? Like, it's just too much, right? Or the vice versa of too little. No one's told me anything. And I think I'm supposed to show up at 9 a.m. on Monday, but no one's told me. So I have no idea. Right. Getting that balance right in the pre-boarding phase makes a huge difference for that new excited candidate to still actually stay excited.
I'm smiling because you don't know this, but from 2006 to 2010, I was a co-founder of an online feedback portal for HR that would actually gather intelligence about those experiences along those key points before people got hired.
Yeah.
So I completely believe that. Okay, so now I want to spend probably most of the rest of the show here talking about the workplace experience part of your flywheel, because that's just both of our gems. And I love how you start this chapter by saying, ask yourself why anyone would want to wake up early, drive in bumper to bumper traffic, and pay insane toll tags and parking to work in a less than ideal office when they could be more productive working at home.
Yeah. I mean, you can sort of tell my viewpoint on things personally when it comes to that, because it drives me crazy. I have worked in organizations where they have done return to office mandates, right? Show up in the next 2 weeks starting on this day, or if you don't, well, thank you for working here. Goodbye.
Right.
And the office is not capable to handle that many people in the office space at the same time, either with meeting rooms or Wi-Fi or whatever. And so you literally show up with your laptop and you're having Zoom calls with the people you're sitting next to. It makes no sense whatsoever. Right. So the physical office space really has to be built for actual success. And that requires really doing a full audit of the physical office space. You walk the space and think about what is it that needs to be updated before we do a return to office mandate.
And I want to get into that because I think this is some of the best stuff. The way that I do the show, Mary, I don't know about you, but it's really curated. So I really don't talk about things to a great degree if we've already covered them on the show. Yeah. I pull out the things that just add to what we've talked about. So I want to get into that in just a second. But before we do that, I think it really makes sense. And I love this whole concept. I've never heard it before. Heads up versus heads down work.
Yeah.
I think this is so powerful. If you could share that with us.
Yeah, I was just flipping to that page as well because I really wanted to share from it. So in page 196 of the book, I really talk about this concept of heads up versus heads down work. And here is my thoughts on it. In any given time, in any given moment during your workday, a person, no matter what level they work and no matter what department, they're going to have a sprinkling of heads up work and a sprinkling of heads down work. And heads up work for me is brainstorming with others, collaboration and co-design work that is best done face-to-face. It's team building time that actually strengthens connection and trust and respect that you can't get on a Zoom call, right? It's time for pitching ideas to leaders, and it's also decision-making time. So that's why you need to be face-to-face, in person, in real life, and that really is that heads-up kind of work, right? Everything else is heads down work. Focus time. I really just need to put my headphones on and put my head down and focus on whatever it is. Work on the spreadsheet, work on this graphic design, work on the strategy, et cetera, et cetera. Heads down work requires more quiet time. You can't be in an open office plan with 80 people on Zoom calls around you and try to even have any sort of sense of concentration on heads down work. So having said that, I think that the modern worker now is migrant. They migrate from one hotspot to another inside your physical office space, depending on the type of work that they're doing. And again, this is different. Boomers, they would sit in an office and do their work all day long in one office, maybe go into a conference room for a meeting here or there, but they stay really stationary. But now in this day and age, people don't have offices. People don't even have walls, right? They barely even have a desk that's their own. It's more like hoteling where you check into this desk one day and this other desk another day. And so for me, I believe that a modern hybrid office that is built for success is thinking about a person migrating throughout the day to do their heads up work. Maybe there's a brainstorm session with their team in the morning. So it's in a really collaborative space with whiteboards and post-it notes and snacks and all the things, right? And then they move into a telephone booth for heads down time just to focus on something where they just need absolute quiet. Or maybe they move to an outdoor space for that connection point, with their one-on-ones. And so they're migrating throughout the day to the right spot, the right physical office spot that helps them do the work that they're doing, whether it's heads up or heads down.
Mm-hmm. Now, imagine, listen, listeners and viewers, just imagine the experience that your workplace, your employer actually went to the trouble and really thought about trying to create an ideal workplace experience for you, and then created these different stations for you to go to where people, as you say, might focus, huddle, sprint, be social, or reset. That's right. And when you create this environment, that you give them signage and tell them this is where you go for this. This is a way for you. This is how you choose where you can do your best work.
Yeah.
I think that is brilliant, Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that I've seen it in action. I've seen inside the offices of Amazon in their Nashville office, and it's very much built like this, where there are zones for migration. In the Nashville office of Amazon, they have this really cool art studio space. I mean, it's like massive, where a person could go in there and they just need to unlock the right brain side of creativity. Maybe they're stuck. It's a full art studio that's built with all the art supplies you could ever imagine. Your 8-year-old inner child would just go so giddy, right? And you reserve out the space. You could do it individually. You can do it as a team, and it's built for you to get unstuck. That is Amazon money, obviously, and not every company has that kind of a budget. But you do have, the elements of that. Maybe there is a corner in one part of your office that's got some art supplies and some doodle pads. Mm-hmm. That doesn't cost more than like maybe $40 or $50 tops to stock it up, put a sign up and say, hey, this is a creative zone. Use it as you will. Mm-hmm. You can do the same thing for a lot less.
I don't know do you know who Marissa Hale is?
Oh, yes, of course.
She does. Marissa, you're a rock star. She helps companies design for those optimized workplaces that are just really, sensually appealing.
Yes.
And so to that end, I also appreciated your idea or your offer, to even rethink the bathrooms. Could you put something on the back stall door that talks about some upcoming events or something? Could you have upbeat music or at least it's peaceful or something that helps them have a better experience there? And so, what I like to say is, if you are going to ask your employees to come into the office, either hybrid or full-time, you do need to earn the commute today.
1,000%. Yes. And I think that a lot of these ideas, if you actually brought somebody in who's thinking in these terms, again, 5 senses of this physical space, what do I need in order to do my best work? It's not about ping pong tables and pizza parties.
Right.
While, all those things are nice. What is it actually that I need to do great work? I need solid Wi-Fi. I need spaces where I can put my head down and really focus. I need a place that inspires me. If we're talking fluorescent lighting and beige walls, like shoot me now. So and it doesn't have to be like, Google or Amazon crazy money spending, but it has to be a space that's designed with intention, right? And those are the things that I think employees notice. Those are signals that we appreciate, and we go, yeah, actually, I am proud to work here because they do care about me. No matter how long or short I stay. And this is really important, Elisa, and I think this is worth saying with my outside voice. I think layoffs are still going to happen. Like, I don't think we're going to end that magically in the next couple of years. I think they will continue to be a part of the ethos of working in corporate life. So when you change the paradigm shift and you say, hey, you know what, we're a company that focuses on employee experience. So for whatever long you are with us, we are devoted to you if you can be devoted to us and our customers, right? And we show you how devoted we are through employee experience. And, that is in turn. And I think that that's a lot more of an honest transaction and expectation 2 ways than, hey, do whatever it takes, bust your ass and hit those revenue targets. And if you don't, you're out.
Right. Well, actually, what you just put forth there, I know that Reed Hastings has put forth that idea. For however long you're here, we're gonna invest in making you better.
Yes.
And we ask that you just give your best to be able to contribute to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And that's that ought to be the new contract.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Okay, so we're almost out of time. So let me give you a chance to be able to close the conversation in say 20 seconds. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
I'm super excited to have this book out in the world. I'm continuing a book tour all the way through till the end of June or so. So if you're curious about Squash the Sunday Scaries, you can go to the website, squashthesundayscaries.com. And also, I'm really excited. You're the first to hear about this, but I'm launching a book club for this book in particular. Because, here's the thing. We're all busy people. And, to read a whole book and actually put it into action is really hard sometimes when it's just you you, the individual. So my belief is that if I can pull together a book club of other HR professionals and people managers who want that accountability, somebody to run alongside them for 30 days to help you do the thing and take action, that's exactly it. So again, you can find details about that at squashthesundayscaries.com. The first group launches on June 15th.
Amazing. Mary, this is amazing. I'm so happy to know you, count you as a friend, and help support this into the world. Thanks so much for coming on Working on Purpose and writing this book. And listeners and viewers, definitely you can go to the site that she mentioned. You can also check her out at thesimplifiers.com. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it via recorded podcast. We were on air with Alexandra Levitt, who is the founder and CEO of Inspiration at Work, which is a woman-owned futurist consulting business with the goal of preparing organizations and their employees to be competitive and marketable in the future business world. She's the author of several books, with her latest one co-authored called Make School Work: Solving the American Youth Employment Crisis Through Work-Based Learning. We talked about the widespread problem of preparing youth for the workforce, how necessary upskilling is spearheading the direction of education, and the approach she and her co-authors advocate for solving the early workforce preparation problem. Next week, we'll be on the air with Sherry Jacobs talking about her book, The Unexpected Power of Boundaries: Rethinking the Rules, Risks, and Real Drivers of Innovation. See you then. Remember, let's continue leaning in and learning from each other and finding a way to work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.